Welcome to No Excuses. My name is Mary Fran, and today we are going to talk about the books that I read last week. And I'm kind of shocked to tell you that I only finished 2 books. That's kind of odd for me, but I was busy. I was on the go a lot. I was doing things. I was away from home. I was just busy. The nonfiction book that I read was called I Think I Was Murdered. And this book actually starts with a lady, and her husband was killed in a car accident. And basically, he was run off the road. And it was just looked at as an accident because he was late at night, he was driving fast, blah, blah, blah. And he died. And it's now a year later, and his wife is using a chat bot. Apparently she was part of some kind of technology company. She was a lawyer for them. And one of her friends, who was one of the programmers and, people behind it, actually had downloaded all of his chats, all of his social media, everything onto a chat bot. And so this lady was actually asking the chat bot questions to her husband, and he would respond. What was your favorite memory of ours? And he would come up with some kind of response. When we hiked up here, and then would you like to see pictures? And so they would use it. And so she was using this kind of as a substitute for her husband, who was gone. So that sets up the story, but a couple things that happen. Her job, the CEO has actually done some bad things, and the company is being disbanded because, it's under investigation. Her grandmother dies, and she is given a property. And then in the same regards, she's starting to realize that something isn't right with the chatbot, because the chatbot is whenever she asks it certain questions, it will not answer. It will say weird things. It will do weird things. And she's starting to say that something's fishy. And so she starts to go off on this big quest to find out what really happened to her husband, to find out what is happening in life. And, one of the things is the chat bot at one point says, I think I was murdered. So she starts to investigate, and she does come to the truth. There's guns, there's running for your life, there's betrayal, there's love, there's a little bit of everything. It was a good book. It seemed like it read a little bit slow to me, but then I was busy, so maybe that's why. The second book that I finished was called Educated. And this is actually one of the nonfictions that I read for the 75 Hard Challenge. And I picked this one up. It sounded very interesting because the blurb basically says that this is a girl who was not sent to school, and she really had no education, and the homeschooling really had failed her. And she decided to get out of that situation and to go to college, and she became educated. And I picked it up. I thought that was interesting. Somebody that's, been homeschooled or very, very minimally schooled, figuring out education on her own. I thought that was neat. And I stand by that concept. The chapter about her going to school and her first class, one of her first classes, she was in a history class, and she did not know what the word Holocaust meant. So everybody else was asking questions, so she raised her hand and asked. And how everybody just looked at her like she was insane, because who doesn't know what the Holocaust is? And how, she was making missteps like that because she was so grossly uneducated. And, and it did talk about how she, really pushed herself, and how she ended up with getting her doctorate. She kept doing this. And so she was a very smart girl, and she was able to get ahead, and she was able to push herself. But that was not the bulk of the book. I would say I'd be lucky if that was even 1/8 of the book. Even though it was called Educated, that was probably less than 1/8 of the book. What the book was about her very untraditional upbringing. Her father was sure that the government was a conspiracy and was saving and was always looking for this. They were a little, how to say it nicely? I don't know that I can. Her family was a little wacky. There was some violence involved. Her father was very stiff and unwielding. She knew he loved her, but he would just make them do things that were unsafe. So it was not uncommon for her to be required to go out to work with her father, and for her or her brothers to end up quite injured. We're talking loss of fingers, major major burns, stuff like that. So it talks about that. It talks about her mother's inability to, stand up for her. So, it's good because I can tell it was healing because she was talking through her rough childhood, and it talked through her getting out of that childhood. But the book was supposed to be about education, and that's not what it was. So it was a little disappointing. Anyway, still a good read. So those are the two measly books that I read. I don't know that I'm going to be doing much better this week, but you know what? It is what it is. I am still reading. I am still enjoying it. I don't think I've mentioned this, but I actually am also, of course, reading the Bible through this year. I'm reading it through chronologically this year. I thought that would be kind of fun to read it through chronologically instead of chapter by chapter. So I am still reading that. I am ahead of that. I am ahead in my pace, so everything is good with that. But I'm not counting that. I'll let you know when I finish it. But other than that, just 2 books. Get out, enjoy life, read, explore, see the world through books. No excuses.